Okay, we're back. We're going to do a bit of a case study here. Again, the case study, Nathan, it is based on a widow. However, we will talk about if there is, mum and dad living together and one needs to go into care. So talk to us about Carol.
So this is Carol's a classic case of very little assets, got the family home, something's happened, need to go into care. So in this instance, she's got 3 kids, one's power of attorney. Everyone seems to get along pretty well. And I note varied levels of individual financial success. It seems odd that that's relevant, but it really is, because it's when you start, as a financial advisor, I start looking for any family dynamics that could potentially be problematic in decision making. House worth $1.6 million. She's lived in it for 50 years. Lots of memories, lots of physical things. And when I say physical things, then I'm talking about stuff. 50 years of life, 50 years of accumulated American scientific magazines and, all that kind of stuff. Her room is $550 rad, and there's an additional services fee or higher everyday living fee of $10 a day. And Carol's got about 20 grand in the bank. That's it.
So that's kind of the current situation. Now then, if we have a look, I'm just having a look. So these questions here.
This is what people are asking.
Right.
What are the fees? What are we actually paying here? I'm not really sure. Do I pay them? Do we just pay mum's rad? What happens if we sell the house? Does anything change?
I guess to the start of the episode where you're like, that common question, do we have to pay mum or dad's fees? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Almost always.
I'm so hesitant anytime someone wants to do it.
Yeah.
Because of the chain of problems that can occur. Occasionally, it can make sense.
But this is similar, like it also gets off track really fast if you're one of 3 siblings and you flick in 200 grand for mum, then we've got an estate planning equalisation issue.
100%. Because it's not your money, it's not mum's issue unless there's a loan in place.
Yes.
Could mum enter that loan arrangement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
All right, so back to the cricket. Should I pay the fees? Probably not. Should I pay the rad? Probably not. What happens once we sell? Do we have to sell or we can keep the house in the family? So this is a big eyegasm in the coming up slides. Talk us through these slides here.
What I was doing here is giving an idea of what mum's fees are right now.
Right.
So I'll go through them to give listeners and the viewers a bit of an idea of what to expect, because they're going to get bill shock.
Yes.
So in this situation, I've assumed she's got 20 grand but getting no interest.
So this table here is currently living at home.
No, she's just gone into care.
Right. Okay.
So she's getting $29,000.
Why the heck is there $10,000 there in home insurance and rates?
Because it's rates. Because her house is for $1.6 million.
Oh, no. So are we saying she's moved into the home and kept the house?
Still got the house.
Right.
She's moved in last week.
Is there an intention to sell the house in this?
That's why they've come to speak to me.
Ooh.
Right?
All right. I'll buy it.
This is about as like tip-top white bread inquiry as I get. This is so common.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's $10,000. Because mum's been living at home with 29 grand coming in. And she's been paying 8 grand a year in rates.
Yeah.
And 2 grand a bit of home insurance. She's got personal expenses of 5 grand. That's outside of what she would pay for groceries and all the rest of it at home. But this is her in care. Basic daily fee, $23,000. Higher everyday living fee, $10 a day. And there's a DAP. There is a daily payment for that accommodation because they've paid nothing on the RAD of almost $43,000 a year. So day one, mum moves into care. They've got this house that's doing nothing, 20 grand in the bank, and her annual fees, $69,000.
Yes.
Plus personal expenses. Plus,
so she's in the whole 55 grand a year.
55 grand a year from day dot.
So the first immediate question, can you rent the bastard for 55 grand a year?
Well, can we rent it? Is it an estate to rent?
Yeah, I don't know.
How much work needs to be done to it? I'm in Victoria, Glenn. The standards for for home rentals is quite high, so you got to spend a bit of money getting them up and running.
So can we get $1,060 a week-ish?
Maybe, yeah.
But that's also not really the question because then that $1,000 a week comes online for assessment.
And I've done the numbers on it.
Have you really?
I've done the numbers
Should
on
we
it.
go there?
We can, but I think the key to this, just quick takeout, is where do you find $5,800 a month? And that's why people are worried. That's why they're coming to me panicking. Because there's not many other places you don't have to pay the bill straight away. Yeah, aged care might be good and they might be fair, but you shouldn't have to ask them to do it either.
Yeah.
They're just doing it out of the good of their heart. So let's jump in.
All right. What are the options, my friend?
Put the cash in high interest. Cool. We've made 4% on 20 grand. That's not bridging the gap. Do we lend Carol the money? Do we lend her the lump sum for the RAD? Do we speak to the facility about running up overdue fees? Highlight that straight away. Good communication is key. A couple other options. If you click through, we rent it.
Yeah.
Already brought that up. Or we sell. Right. So what do they look like in numbers wise? Let's jump into that and talk through it.
Oh, goodness
now this is a shocking slide. If you're looking at this, there's so much happening on here.
Yeah. And if you're driving along, well, just enjoy the dulcet.
We're going to walk you through it. We're going to walk you through it. So right now, we know she's $55,000 in the hole. So let's rent it out. Let's say she gets 60 grand for it. So I think it was like 3.8%. On that property. Straight away, we've now got an assessable income for the age pension. So her age pension drops. So her income's decreased. So while we've filled some of the gap, do we fill all of it? It's also assessable for the means tested fee. So now she didn't have one. Now she has one. So we're getting about 73 grand a year in total between rental income and age pension. We're forking out 23 grand in basic daily fee, the high everyday living fee, an additional 9 grand in means tested fees, and we're still paying that debt. So we're $78,000 in the negative. But now we've got rental expenses for the home. We've got to make sure it's insured. We've got to, pay, and we've still got to pay things like, and we've got land tax.
Yeah.
Now I've chucked 10 grand in. Every state's completely different.
Yeah, I was going to say it really depends. Probably overkill, but
it really depends, right? I want to flag that big time.
Yeah.
I did have that case I was talking about before.
You're from the state that's got the worst land taxes in the world.
Yeah.
So there's that.
I've put in a big number there. You can adjust that based on your state, based on your situation. It can be material. For really expensive houses, it can be quite material. For cheaper houses, less so, depending on how it's calculated. But the point being, we've got all these other outgoings still. So we've got 73 in, 78 out, plus whatever home expenses, plus whatever personal expenses need to happen. We haven't filled the gap yet. And there's tax potentially, depending on how much she's writing off on the house and all the rest of it. That's really circumstantial as well.
Okay, so rent the house, we're still in the hole.
Still in the hole.
Sell the house, which means we're putting the money into the RAD.
Correct. We're paying that RAD off.
Yeah.
And then I've assumed in this instance we just chucked $1 million into a term deposit at 4%. Nice round number of $40,000. The rest of it sits in low interest account, accessible. That's a good idea. It's neither here nor there. But there's not much there. And you end up with a basic daily fee is the same. But the means tested fee is $24,500 a year. So our aged care fees are still $51,000 a year, but we're not paying 42 grand in that RAD anymore. So this is kind of this environment where you don't want to sell it immediately because you could find 10, 20, 30 grand by spending a bit of time doing up the house, making sure you got the right buyer, all that kind of stuff. But in this instance, if she's got no other assets, it might be just what you have to do. And that's the unfortunate reality. Another little interesting thing over time, that means tested fee, Centrelink total that up each year. And you hit the lifetime cap. It's about just under 85 grand at the moment. You don't pay that ever again.
Okay, so there is some silver lining with this strategy.
Yeah. So in 4 years' time, that could be the case. There's also another thing that I didn't put in here, but if you do get advice, there's some specific products for aged care, people in aged care, that are more favourable for means testing and provide fixed rates of interest and things like that.
Oh, like annuities.
It's an aged care specific annuities.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then you're still in the hole, 17,000. Where would the 17 grand a year come from? Capital, right.
Yep. So we might leave 20 or 30 grand in cash, draw down that over the course of the year.
Yep.
Term deposit comes up in a year's time, leave some out, go again.
Okay, cool.
So mum's still paying for her cost of care.
Yep. Now, lend the RAD. What does that mean?
That means someone said, we don't want to sell the house yet, so we're going to lend mum the money for the RAD, the $550.
Yeah, so they get the documentation, that's all honky-dory.
Everything's fine. We're assuming that there's no issues. Power of attorney is a family friend.
Your only child, blah, blah, blah.
And you can afford to lend mum $500,000.
Yep.
You lend that across. What does that mean? Well, this is highlighting the fact that the loan, that family loan agreement, doesn't matter for the means tested fee. That money goes across and goes onto that RAD, and that RAD is still counted for the means tested fee. There's something about breaking the nexus that it no longer connected. So she ends up with a means tested fee of $8,000. But the question is, if this could work, $8,000 of means tested fee is a lot less than $42,000 of DAP. So there is situations where lending the money to mum may make sense.
Yes.
But you've got all of those ducks in like so many of these
But
things.
you
have
still,
to line
when
up.
it washes up here, you're still in the whole $50,000.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 20
$20,000.
$20,000, sorry.
Still got to, maybe you got to lend extra money to mum. Maybe you got to pay those fees. How do you monitor that? How do you maintain all of his records? It is one of those things where maybe if someone's got $1.6 million of assets, they need to pay their way. Yeah.
So what we're saying, the best case scenario here is, ultimately it depends, is the end of the slide. So what we're saying here, Carol or mum needs to go into a home. The RAD is $550. The house is worth $1.6. So there is $1 million that is out of the equation. It's going to be in cash, could be and let's be clear as well, it might go into an investment account. You can do whatever you want with it. The question is, and we don't know how old Carol is here. If Carol's 90,
it's a different equation than
looking good for 90, but
yeah.
I don't know if we are doing anything more than cash or term deposits.
There's a real ethical dilemma in this space because you've got to invest for them.
Yes.
And so if you start investing because mum's fees are covered, we're sorted, let's invest the rest of the money for the estate, the question is, who is this for? And it can be what they would have done otherwise, but there's a bit of a dilemma.
So there's going to be
$1
million in Carol's bank account, in cash, high interest savings account, and then each year there's going to be $17,000 a year that's getting taken up to the threshold. So 2, 4, 6, 8, call it 5 years.
I think it was like 24 or something, but yeah.
Yeah. After 5 years or so, or whatever it is, that will reduce.
Mm-hmm. And then they'll stop altogether and then she'll have more than enough from there.
Yeah. So the age, it's like, what's the life expectancy of someone entering care? 3 years?
The stats say new entrants, it's like 11 months for men and 10 months for women.
Yeah,
it's the other way around, 11 months for women, 10 months for men. But that's because people tend to enter care at the last possible moment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, but most of the tables and most of the work we do, we look 3 to 5 years. Yeah.
Now, in this, there's 2 things we haven't talked about, and that is what happens with, so let's just say Carol, she's got the $1.6 million home, she's got $20,000 in the bank, and she's on full Centrelink pension. What happens if she needs a home care package? Does she have to pay for that?
While she's at home before she moves into care? There is a contribution.
Right.
And in the new rules, that's going to change dramatically.
Right.
So people are going to be contributing a lot more for certain aspects
But if
of their
she's
care.
cash poor,
then she's probably going to pay nothing in this instance without doing the numbers. She
Yeah.
probably, if not the minimal, no.
So there's a good safety net in Australia. You'll be looked after, but this is like, I know when we were trying to move Nan into a nursing home 1 million years ago, okay, well, there was a waiting list at Bateau Bay. We couldn't get Bateau Bay, but went over to Wyong, and like, sometimes you got to get where there is a bed. And I will say you can move facilities and transfer the RAD.
You can. What you actually exit and then come back. If you do that, if you exit a facility and then you re-enter after the 1st of November.
Do they grandfather it?
Some of it.
Right, gosh.
There's a whole episode on that. But I think the important thing is in that, to your point, everyone can get care in Australia.
Yes.
So if Cara had no money, she goes in as either we call a fully supported or a low means person. The RAD that's advertised is actually calculated based on her means.
Right.
And becomes variable. If Carol's husband is still living at home.
Okay, let's now.
That opens up.
Let's open the chat box of we'll add Carol and David. They've got their $1.6 million home. They've got their full age pension of $45,000. David had a stroke overnight. Can't care for himself. We have to move David into a home. But Carol's right as rain. Like, she's healthy, she's fit, she's, all that stuff. How does it work? Does Carol have to sell the house to pay for David's care?
No.
Right.
And there is a real beauty to the system. I find it fascinating how it works itself out, as complicated as it is. In that instance, Carol would be regarded as a protected person, providing she met the requirements. And so in that instance...
And by requirements means I'm a spouse of the person that's going in.
Yeah.
Or I'm financially dependent.
There's some rules around carers, around spouses, around that sort of stuff. But because sometimes you might have a child living with you that's cared for you a long period of time, they could be a protected person. So, but in that instance, then the house is exempt. So instead of having $206,000 plus $20,000, David is only assessed at having $20,000.
Right.
Which means he goes in as a fully supported person.
So he doesn't have to pay the $550 RAD or the daily interest cost.
Correct. If he had $20,000 in the bank or under $50,000, his accommodation costs would be zero.
But he still needs to pay the basic daily fee.
Correct.
Which, now, is that calculated at...
It's exactly
85% of the couple's pension or just half?
So two parts. Firstly, it's 85% of a single person pension no matter what, even if you don't get a pension.
Okay, so they've just got to pay $70 a day.
It's just the number.
Yes.
Yeah. But when he goes into care, he counts as they are a couple separated by illness.
Right.
So they go from receiving the couple's pension to receiving two single pensions.
Right.
So they get a pay rise.
Yes.
So effectively, Carol at home starts receiving $29,000, single person, and David receives $29,000, single person.
85% of David's will get sucked up in the daily fee.
Yeah, and it is invoiced. It doesn't come out of their pension. I think that's a common misconception.
It's not garnished from Centrelink.
You get the invoice, you pay the invoice.
Yeah.
Yep, correct. So it's really powerful because it means that Carol doesn't have to sell. She's not forced to move into care. Carol's fine, she doesn't need to.
What happens if David's in care and this is all set up, the house is in joint tenants, Carol goes to Brazil and does some bungee jumping and they just don't have the regulations there and dies tragically in an accident? David now has a house.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's a resetting of the rules and we have to now pay a RAD?
Once he is low means, supported or partially supported, fully supported, he's still low means.
So he could have $1.6 million in cash after Carol's bungee jumping accident and doesn't have to pay.
So that accommodation amount is variable and means tested when you're low means.
Right.
So instead of it being called a RAD, instead of a DAP, there's a DAC. Or instead of it's basically, So there is another system in place that says we've calculated his means. He now has to pay $400,000 of accommodation, in which case he would be in a very similar situation than before. But if you are thinking about maybe David and Carol need to go in. If David went in a day before Carol, he would go in as low means.
So it could be strategic.
There is a strategic aspect to this if both parents need to go in.
We've covered a lot of ground, and I think today I really wanted to just provide comfort to people to not stress out about the financials because it will work out and it will be fine. Even if it's after November or before, everyone will be fine. The stress is the relational trying to move someone in who needs the care and they don't think they need it. And that's a whole other discussion. And maybe I'll do an episode with a psychologist or someone to help walk through that. But we will do another episode after the 1st of November once all this is put to bed. So we'll basically run this same case study, but with the new rules after November.
Yeah, great.
So, but just on that, if mum or dad is living in a $1.62 million home and they need to go into care, it's okay to pay $10,000 or advice fee to do this right, whatever the fee might be.
There's the financial benefit of doing it. People delay it. That family I was talking about in the really expensive facility, there was some infighting between siblings as to spending the money. That delay cost them $60,000.
Yeah.
So there is benefit in the numbers, and a lot of HQ advisors like myself also do a lot of hand holding. We talk to Centrelink, we talk to the facility, we deal with
project manager.
We deal with the shares, we transfer them into all that stuff. We take that off you.
Yeah.
Because you've got other stuff to worry about. There's a lot of that value in this piece.
Yeah. So get advice. Don't be afraid. The Centrelink financial information service probably could help if it's relatively low cost. So if there's, mum and dad living in a home, they've got no super, they've got 10 grand in cash, what do we do? Well, you might not need advice in that situation because it's literally follow the bouncing ball. It's a low means, what do they call it? A low means.
If they had no assets, it would be a low means.
Yeah, a low means fully supported entrant. You probably won't need strategic financial advice. But if there's assets, so what if Carol and David had $500,000 in their super each? He's no longer low means.
Correct.
So
goes over the 200,000. Now we're in a different game again.
Yeah. So that's a good threshold. If there's assets over 200,000, there could be an advice discussion needed.
Either a house or assets.
Yeah.
Because the house will be valued at that number.
Yeah.
That's really that threshold. But I also encourage, a lot of the time I can help that conversation through a 15-minute call, or you go to a FIS officer, or it is a bit simpler, but there's still some stuff on it to do.
Awesome. We'll put a link if you want to reach out to Nathan Fradley Advice in the show notes. He'll help you all over Australia. Everyone's online now. There's not really a need to sit down with. I know a lot of you want to sit face to face with your advisor, but there's no real need. I think you just need to know if you recommend it to someone, we trust them. We hope that this has taken a bit of anxiety away with mum and dad who might need to move into a home. My name's Glen James. Thanks, Nathan. We'll see you guys soon. Bye. Hey, it's Glenn here. Thank you so much for watching today's video. You made it to the end. Can I ask a favor? Can you hit that like button and maybe hit subscribe if you want to get notified when we release further videos just like this one, whether you watch the Money, Money, Money podcast or Retire Right. And remember, if you want to learn more about investing, I've got an investing book, The Quick Start Guide to Investing, and there's a link in the description to get your hands on a copy. Thank you so much. Bye.